Okay, wow, the lights are bright up here. So first, I would like to thank BIO and the Rosalind Franklin Society for collaborating to create this award honoring Ms. Franklin's critical work in X-ray crystallography and foundational contribution to industrial biotechnology in the form of enabling the elucidation of the structure of DNA. I am honored and flattered by the company of former award winners, including Jennifer Holmgren of Lonzatech and Debbie Yaver of Novozymes. So in receiving this award, I read up a bit on the life of Ms. Franklin, and I was struck by three things. The first was to be incredibly impressed, of course, by the accomplishments that she made at a time when women faced such huge obstacles. The second was I felt a kindred spirit in her passion for using science as a means to solve problems. And third, I learned that one of her early research positions was actually with the British Coal Utilization Research Association. So, given that one of the things that NexSteppe does is to optimize biomass for combustion in order to displace coal, and given that much of the work we do would not have been possible without Ms. Franklin's work, I find it entertaining and a bit ironic that we have coal to thank for some of her early career development. So for anyone not familiar with NexSteppe, we are, I guess you are now, we are a global seed company committed to enabling the bioeconomy by developing high-quality, cost-effective, sustainable, and reliable feedstocks for the entire range of biopower, biogas, advanced and cellulosic biofuels, and bio-based products. As the commercial scale of these industries grows, so too does the need for our part to help drive the continued growth and development of these industries. So with all of that as background, let me say this is an interesting time in the history and development of industrial biotechnology to be receiving this award. The industry is faced with challenges on all fronts. We have the lowest oil prices in 13 years and other commodities following suit. We have a lack of policy support in precisely those countries, like the US, that everyone expected to be champions of and leaders in the bioeconomy. We have theoretical concerns about land use change, and particularly in the US, climate change deniers having undue impact on our policy debates. We have the G20 still spending $452 billion per year subsidizing fossil fuels versus only $121 billion spent globally on subsidies for renewable energy production. The Brazilian economy is obviously in crisis, as is their political system. It's the worst recession in more than 2 decades, the longest downturn since the 1930s, and they have a president currently facing impeachment. And more broadly, we have a global economic slowdown. Just last week, the IMF cut their outlook for global growth in 2016 for the 4th time in the past year. And we finally have a generally very difficult fundraising environment for early-stage companies. Public markets are difficult to access. Valuations of many high-profile privately held companies are dropping, and technology acquisitions by ag majors, chemical majors, and oil majors are largely on hold due to low oil prices. 91% and other commodity prices. 91% of venture capitalists in a recent Forbes survey expect valuations to decline this year across all sectors, and 62% said their portfolios were cutting costs. As a result of all of this, many technologies are struggling to reach the scale necessary to really have impact and to demonstrate the potential of these industries to fix some of the world's most pressing problems. Nevertheless, if we look out beyond the current environment, there is significant light at the end of the tunnel. So, what I'd like to do today is share with you my top 10 list of reasons to be optimistic about the prospects for these industries. So, number 1 is all of the advances that this industry has made. While proceeding slower than some of us we would have hoped, there is significant technology development and infrastructure build-out moving forward in both bio-based products and in advanced and cellulosic biofuels. And more of these technologies are being proven at commercial scale and integrated into real-world value chains. Number 2, the gathering momentum around climate change. So the US-China agreement on joint climate action was initiated in November of 2014, reaffirmed in September of 2015, and then having that number 1 and number 2 emitter on board was largely responsible for enabling the success of COP21, a historic agreement signed at the end of 2015. While it will take time to implement national policies, the agreement on a limit of only 1.5 degrees Celsius is even more aggressive than most had hoped for. There's also activity on the private side with growing momentum around divestment of fossil fuel investments. The concept came to prominence through commitments of high-profile universities like Stanford, Oxford, Georgetown, Syracuse, and the UC system. But the movement now counts more than 515 institutions ranging from pension funds to foundations, together controlling $3.4 trillion in assets. Number 3, the broader environmental issues related to fossil fuels continue, and there is increasing global awareness of them. Air quality is probably the one most talked about, and we all know about the issues in China, but what many don't know is that India is even worse, and many other major emerging market cities are also just as bad or not far behind. We now believe have 3 million premature deaths per year due to outdoor air pollution. Similarly, we've all heard of Deepwater Horizon, but just this month, 17,000 gallons leaked out of the Keystone 1 pipeline in South Dakota. Last month, 3,000 barrels leaked out of a pipeline operated by Peru into Amazon tributaries. And less than a year ago, 100,000 gallons spilled out of a pipeline here in California, with 21,000 of those gallons going into the ocean. Number 4, the increasing realization that the concepts of food versus land use change are just not grounded in reality. Global level data now shows that between 2000 and 2010, an increase in farming intensity, particularly multiple cropping, resulted in a significant net increase in the harvested area of food, feed, and fiber crops, while total agricultural land shrank and biofuels production grew to more than 25 billion gallons globally. This is consistent with our experience at NexSteppe, where in Brazil, our largest market, our crops are grown predominantly either during the renewal period between cane and fallow, or as a second crop following soybean, in which case they can actually increase soybean yields. A recent report funded by the European Commission found that an increase in demand of biofuels made from sugar and starch crops can be met with low impact on land use change, and that cellulosic feedstocks have a low or even positive land use change impact. Number 5, fuel subsidies. While low oil prices are clearly not perfect for this industry, they may actually be doing us some medium and long-term good. Specifically, it created an opportunity, and in some cases a forcing mechanism, for drastic cuts in fuel subsidies around the world, most notably in India, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia, but also in India, Egypt, Malaysia, Nigeria, and the United Arab Emirates, to name just a few. Number 6, the resurgence of energy security concerns. So US politicians are happiest when oil prices are moderate, high enough to support domestic production, and low enough to keep motorists happy. The original energy security concerns that led to the RFS and other industry supporting policy were of course related to high oil prices, though back then we did think $60 was high, but low prices cause problems too. Due to current low oil prices, US crude production is forecasted to 8.7 this year and 8.2 next. Oil and gas rig counts are at their lowest level since 1999. Meanwhile, with demand continuing to grow, our daily crude imports over the past 13 weeks averaged 7.9 million barrels per day, up from 7.1 in the 13 weeks ended July 3rd, 2015, when oil first dropped and stayed below $50. While energy independence is a misnomer in a globally connected commodity world, a decline in the US industry at the hands of low prices and the current refusal or inability of OPEC to do anything about these low prices definitely dents the perception of increasing energy security and the complacency that that perception has created. Number 7, the rebalancing of global currencies. So dollar strength has been partly responsible for the commodity price drop, and for those of us who've moved beyond the United States, it has also hampered our revenue growth in US dollar terms. However, this strength has also meant that our global expansion has come cheaper, and the recovery of these other currencies over the coming years will now accelerate our revenue growth in US dollar terms. Number 8, Brazil. Its history as a leader in the bioeconomy, its agricultural prowess, and the land opportunity it provides remain. While the crisis is disturbing, the clear dominance of the rule of law throughout the crisis is encouraging, and the recent example of Argentina shows us that this kind of situation can recover very quickly once hope is restored. In the meantime, high debt levels accumulated by both the government and Petrobras, the national oil major, over the past decade have now forced the removal of the cap on gasoline and, by extension, ethanol prices. On the power side, supply constraints and overdependence amount amount of economic recovery or a small decline in rainfall following El Nino will lead to a snapback in energy prices. Number 9, China has gone one step further than removing subsidies or caps and implemented a $40 floor on the price of oil, with proceeds going into an energy security fund. They've also announced a carbon cap and trade program coming in 2017, and they are increasing their focus on remediation of contaminated land. They publicly admitted that 1/5 of all their farmland has levels of heavy metals that are too high to be producing food or feed crops on that land. This creates a massive opportunity for dedicated industrial crops that can provide both remediation and renewable energy. And finally, number 10, what happens when commodity prices recover? There have been significant reductions in R&D budgets amongst the agricultural commodity prices. This means that as commodity prices do come back, these companies will be on the hunt for growth opportunities, and they will be looking to the companies in this room to find them. What unites us all is using biotech in its many forms to disrupt conventional industries and provide solutions that are renewable, sustainable, cost-effective, and reduce the world's dependence on fossil fuels. The world needs us to do this. It needs our help to mitigate climate change, to reduce pollution and other environmental degradation that comes with the use of fossil fuels, and to improve global energy security. So, I encourage you all to see beyond the short-term negative factors currently affecting our industry and to remain committed to realizing the brighter, cooler, and cleaner future that all of our technologies enable. Thank you very much.